Okay, so now what we're doing today is following on from last building instrument seminar we did. We built an audio unit rig, and we managed to get a sound coming out of from an audio unit. So we're going to do...
Sorry, can one successfully reuse a key number like 200?
No. So I'm not quite sure what that means, but if I was to for example, this metronome start-stop button here is actually key 1 on this key group. So like the actual phrase for this one that's actually on the instrument, you say, when I built that, I said, talker 99 hey, metronome hey, when 1 toggle start. If I tried to connect the keyboard to using 1 to try and just control that phrase that's already there, the key would become inactive.
But you just used 200 twice for different purposes.
Yeah, so that was on 2 different talkers. So the first one, you can use 200 several times on different talkers. So the first one, I used octave talker 1. So that's these 2 orange lights here that control the octave of key group 1. So I can use 200 on that one, and then I can use 200 on talker 99, which is the metronome one. But we couldn't use... having said that, you could... having said that, actually, no, you could put 2 phrases. So earlier on, when I said octave talker 1 listen, and then I said key group 1 listen, and I said octave when 200 down, you could actually quite happily put as many phrases as you want, like say when 200 do this, when 200 do that, and then when you hit the pedal, it would activate them all simultaneously. So that's absolutely fine. Yeah, cool. Okay, is that any questions? Is that good? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, building MIDI rigs. So I'm going to do the same thing. MIDI rigs is the same as the audio unit. It's not the most complicated rigs that we can do. Probably the most in-depth ones are probably the sampler instruments. So I've saved that for a bit later again. So the MIDI rig one. I'm going to go through that. So we've got this idea of rigs, which kind of touched on last time. So a rig is a collection of agents. An agent is, so inside Eigenharp we have all these modules running simultaneously. A module could be the metronome, or it could be key group 1, or it could be a talker. These are all different examples of an agent, or a mixer is an agent, or the audio output is an agent. All these different things are agents. And we have a load of them running simultaneously inside Eigenharp. So once we count it once, there's about 400 in like the alpha factory setup. So it's quite difficult to keep track of them because you've got quite a few recorders, for example. The recorder is every instrument has this recorder agent which is responsible for recording while you're playing and looping back what you're playing. And so at the moment there's at least 11 in the standard factory setup of them. So it's kind of, they've all got numbers like recorder 1, recorder 2, recorder 3. So this rig thing is a way of kind of grouping together agents into a useful kind of instrument. So we've got this idea of rigs, and we can name the rig, and then from then on, if I named the rig I'm going to build one in a minute called MIDI rig 3. So if you name the rig MIDI rig 3, then from then on you no longer have to say like recorder 12, scaler 12, etc. You can just say MIDI rig 3 recorder and MIDI rig 3 scaler. So it's easier to keep track of everything. So the first thing to do, I think, would be to create this rig. So we go back to the commander. So create a new empty rig, rig create, as simple as that. Rig create, hit enter, it says OK down the bottom, and then we're going to name that. So we covered this a little bit before, but the last thing you build is then referred to from then on, until you create a new thing, it's referred to as it. So I don't know what that name of that rig, it might be something like rig 5 at the moment called. I can just say it2, and I'm going to create a MIDI rig. There's already 2 MIDI outputs in the system, so this is MIDI rig 3. So it2 MIDI rig 3 nameify. Rig create, it2 MIDI rig 3 nameify. And now we have this empty rig, this kind of empty shell that we could put agents in called MIDI rig 3. Okay, and then let's create the agents we need. So first of all, we need the recorder. So recorder create. The recorder is always, inside a rig, the recorder is always the first thing in a chain. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, the recorder has stuff built into it to keep things separate. So for example, if you connected 5 different key groups to this one recorder, you can keep everything separate. So for the strip controller for one for key group 1 doesn't affect what you're playing on key group 5, for example. Or if you create a recording, the strip controller for what you're playing live over the top of the recording doesn't affect the notes that were actually recorded, and this kind of thing. So the recorder keeps everything separate, basically, into different kind of voices almost. Okay, so recorder create, and then we need to add that to the rig. So I say MIDI rig 3 hey, MIDI rig 3 hey, and then I say it add, because you remember the last thing I created is referred to as it, and the last thing I created was this recorder. So I say MIDI rig 3 hey, it add. Okay, and that gets added to the rig now. I'm going to quickly, so I also need a scaler. The scaler is the thing that takes the information from the keys and applies a scale to it, whether that's a chromatic scale or a major scale or a minor scale. So at the moment, before you go into a scaler, it's just all you have is like key 1, key 2, key 3, key 4. But the scaler takes this key 1 and says, okay, I'm in C major, so key 1 becomes the note C, key 2 becomes the note D, etc. So scaler create, and then again, MIDI rig 3 hey, and then it add, because it's the last thing I created. So now in my rig I have a recorder and a scaler. We also need a MIDI converter. So the MIDI converter takes kind of Eigen D note information and turns it into MIDI. So MIDI converter create, MIDI rig 3 hey, it add, and then a MIDI output finally. So we also need this MIDI output to kind of put the MIDI out into the real world. So MIDI output create, MIDI rig 3 hey, and then it add. Okay, so now we've got the basic agents now that we need inside this rig. What we also need to do quickly is create somewhere on the keyboard to connect to the MIDI rig. So I'm going to create the same as we did last time actually. So I'm going to just create an output here. So an output from a key group is one of these. When you hold down the Mo key, it's one of these lights that are either red or green. So these are outputs from the key group that can be connected to various things like talkers or instruments. I can see there's a space here, so I'm going to just build an output here. So I say, first of all, I say K group 1 hey. This is K group 1 I'm using. K group 1 hey. Just check it says okay, yeah. K group 1 hey, and then, okay, now to find out the number that I want to create the output on. So this is, basically it's key number 44. So the keys are numbered in the order that they're chosen when you create the key group. In the factory setup, we always started from like the top of course 1 and just go down. So that's 22 long, and then the next one is 23 to 44. So this one's at the bottom of course 2. So this is key 44. So K group 1 hey, output 44 create. Okay, now this is the tricky little bit, unfortunately. Okay, so I just have to. You may as well get away from the command for a second. Yeah, sorry. So this is the tricky bit. Okay, so in the factory setups, there's every key group actually is a couple of key groups layered together. Now, there's a good reason for this. So key group 1 is 22 by 5, so it's 22 deep and 5 across. Now, there's also a key group layered over this called Talker K group 1. And the reason for this is Talker K group 1 is kind of superimposed over the top, and it's only the size of this grid at the bottom, this 4x5 grid, the main sort of area that you use to choose instruments and talkers. So there's actually overlaid over overlaid over key group 1, there's this Talker Key group 1, which is only this big. And the reason for that is because when you create talkers, you have to do it by key number, and so basically it would make life a lot more difficult if we didn't have this talker key group. We'd have to create, for example, this drummer and metronome talker. We'd have to create a new drummer and metronome talker for every key group, because the key groups are different sizes and therefore they have different key numbers. Where we'd want, if we wanted these to be laid out the same every time, each command would have to have a different key number depending on the size of the talker. So this is why overlaid over every key group there is a talker key group, which is a uniform size of 4x5. And what this means is we can connect every talker key group to the same talker, if you see what I mean. So for example, there's only this one metronome and drummer talker, which is talker 99. rather than having to have a metronome and drummer talker for every single key group that has different size layouts. So it's a useful thing. This is going to change in a little while because soon we won't be doing it by key numbers. We'll be doing it by position. So you'd be able to say like rather than just key 22, you'd be able to say course 1, key 1, or this kind of thing. So there'll be a slightly better way of doing it soon in the near future. But at the moment we have this talker key group overlaid over every key group. So the only reason I have to tell you this is because if I go closer, so at the moment I've created the key group output on key group 1. But the problem with that is now, okay, so I choose the piano, for example. So that one in the corner is lit green. But then if I choose this one here, the new one, you'll see that the piano becomes lit orange instead of green. And that's because there's 2 talkers overlaid, and I haven't created a corresponding output on talker key group 1. So when I choose that, and then I choose that, talker key group 1 has still got that selected, but key group 1's got that selected. It's difficult to explain, actually, but the conclusion of all that is we also need to create a corresponding output for talker key group 1. And talker key group 1 is 4 by 5. So if I count down from key 1 being the one, the top left of this kind of grid of 4 by 5, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the corresponding output to key 44 on key group 1 is key 8 on talker key group 1. So sorry that's a bit complicated, but it's kind of important if we want to be neat. So I'm going to just quickly do that now. So talker K group 1, hey, and then just output 8 create. And now when I choose this new output, none of the keys get lit orange. They all kind of just move around like they should. So that's that. So that's done now.